And so when we're on purpose, we create things beyond anything that we could have ever imagined. Our relationships flourish. When we're on purpose in our life, things become easy. And when we're on purpose, we're fulfilled.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the No Labels, No Limits podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Box, and I'm thrilled to be here for another conversation with an amazing person. So our guest today is Deidre Sirianni. And we've been gabbing, so I'm all amped up just from our gabbing already. But she's an international best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and founder of Radically Aligned Life Academy. She has a mission, and she's very clear about it. It's to help impact-driven leaders step fully into purpose, heal past wounds, and build businesses that align with their soul's deepest calling. And I'm all about learning about that. Deidre's story is powerful. You know, after a life-altering moment where she received a soul message warning of imminent illness, she made a radical shift, which is a brave move to take. So within 3 months, she healed from chronic pain, disease, and depression, all by listening inward and aligning outward. So you can see kind of how this all ties together for us. Today, she works with entrepreneurs, visionaries, and change makers to tap into the wisdom of their body and intuition, amplify their voice, and create lasting impact. So get ready for an inspiring conversation. I can tell you right now, I am going to bounce around in this conversation because everything we've shared has just like popped up really great questions for Deidre. So with that, let us formally welcome Deidre Sirianni to the podcast. Hi, Deidre.
Hey, Sarah, I'm so excited. Before we pressed the record button, we were going off about all these different things. And I immediately am like, we have a vibe. Okay. So anyone who's watching or listening, there's a vibe going on, and I'm so excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. I would like if you would to start with that moment where things changed for you.
Yeah. So about 8 years ago, actually, it's probably 9 years ago now, I was standing in my kitchen and I was putting my fingers through my hair, as us ladies with long hair do sometimes. I was just, putting my fingers through my hair. And I realized that something fell off. So I grabbed my phone, I raced to the bathroom, I put it on camera mode, and I put it at the back of my head, angling it, trying to figure out what's going on. And that's when I realized I had this massive bald spot on the top of my head. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? How do I fix it? Clearly, God, the universe, is trying to tell me something because it's going after my hair. And I grew up with two older brothers and I was a tomboy. And the one thing that made me the girl of the family was my long hair. So I'm freaking out. I go back to my kitchen. I sit down for a moment just to ground for a second. And that's when I hear this voice come out of me that says, if you don't listen to your soul, you're going to manifest cancer and die in the next year. Then I have a flashback to 5 years prior. The only other time in my life I had ever heard a voice speak to me that was coming through myself, okay? And I'm outside. I have friends and family on both sides of me. And my friend Marty is playing the guitar. He's singing that song. I think it was by James Blunt. I could be wrong though. And the song goes, "It's beautiful, it's true." And I'm walking down the aisle with pink roses in my hands. My favorite. They're actually behind me on video right now. So it's my thing. And I'm walking down the aisle with a big smile on my face. And as I'm walking up to the man that I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, this voice says, "This just isn't going to work." So what do? I was never taught really about intuition. I never heard this voice speak to me. I really did believe that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. So what did I do? I shoved it down. I said, I do. Now I'm sitting in my kitchen having this reflection of that moment, right, Sarah? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 4 autoimmune diseases that the doctors couldn't seem to help me with. I had chronic pain in my neck and shoulders to the point where my massage therapist actually fired me. I didn't know they could do that, but they can. She's like, I can't help you anymore. And she's like, you can't be a client of mine. I'm like, what? But I'm giving you money. What's the deal? So chronic pain, 4 autoimmune diseases. I'm sitting at my kitchen table. I'm having this flashback. And every single time I'm around my husband, my entire body is contracting. Since that day that we got married, every time I was around him, he was always telling me who to be, how to be, what I can say, what I can't say, who I can talk to, who I can't talk to, what I can wear, what I can't wear. And he was calling me names. It was just not a good relationship. But I had convinced myself otherwise. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, this isn't really working. I have depression to the point where maybe 6 months prior, I had a vision of ending my life. I kind of started going to therapy, but I wasn't really like vibing with my therapist. She told me to read a couple books on codependency. And I was like, okay, so I feel a lot and I like to help people. And yeah, some of this is connected to my past. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, could it be that this entire time, ever since I walked down the aisle and ignored that voice, that my soul had been speaking to me through these symptoms of disease, trying to get my attention? But stubborn D was like, oh, I don't really want to look at that right now. I don't really want to deal with it. And so in that moment, 9 years ago in my kitchen, having these flashbacks and this realization that I'm in a mentally and emotionally abusive relationship and my body is shutting down. I made a vow to myself, I'm going to get radically honest with what's going on because I wasn't fully looking at some things. I had to have courage to sit with the decisions I made that brought me to where I was, like not listening to that voice as I'm walking down the aisle. And I had to decide that I was going to take radical responsibility and take massive action with everything that I knew that I needed to change. And that's what I did. I studied the language of the soul. I worked with shamans. I was already doing a lot of that healing work, but I actually started to like embody it. I started to work on my trauma, listen to the language of the soul. And within just 3 months, I healed myself of 3 of those 4 autoimmune diseases. My chronic pain was gone. My depression was gone. My food sensitivities were gone. And then eventually I had the courage to leave that 8-year mentally, emotionally abusive relationship. And so now today, what has me where I am today on this show, which is so exciting, is I help people transform their pain, their trauma, their past into their greatest gift for humanity through creating conscious businesses of impact. And a big part of that is like, what is your soul trying to tell you that you're ignoring? And we were talking a little bit about that strategy versus energy and knowing ourselves before we pressed record. But that's essentially how I got to where I am now and why I'm so passionate about helping people get on stages, get their message out there, and really share their stories.
Did you share with anybody else, like when you're walking down the aisle and you heard that voice? Did you tell anybody that?
No, no, it wasn't. I was so shocked and in denial about it, And I think this happens. We start doing the things that we think we're supposed to do. And I think I was at in a point in my life where I know this. I had never had someone fully show up for me or fully love me, it felt like, which had to do with, past experiences. So for me, this guy was consistent and he chose me. And for me, having that rock in my life was like, oh, this is what love is. And yeah, I might have had some doubts and some feelings, but I had really programmed myself to not trust myself and actually give my own, how would I say, my own wisdom away to other people. I was looking for someone externally to validate my reality or invalidate it. And in that relationship, the entire relationship was about invalidating my reality, which is why my body was like, well, Dee, if you're not going to listen, we're just going to kill you because you have something to do when you're here and you're not doing it. I mean, I had to learn that lesson, the
Oh,
many lessons, right?
well, I think a lot of times we're getting the universal knock, our soul knock, and we're ignoring it.
Oh, yeah.
And then it knocks louder and it knocks a little louder. And then something else happens. You're thinking, what is going on here?
Yeah.
You are willing to look inward.
Hmm.
It's not an easy thing to do necessarily.
Hmm.
Um, but you did not have a doubt that you heard that voice and what you heard was real. So
Yeah.
that wasn't one of those things like maybe I'm crazy. You knew it hit you right in your heart, in your solar plexus, right? Okay, I heard it. It's real.
I I heard it when I was going down the aisle, but I didn't believe it to be true. I was more in a place of I didn't trust myself enough to even think that that was true, and I didn't actually remember it until that moment in my kitchen, you know, 5 years later. And I think that's the crazy thing. I didn't actually remember it because I was in such denial of the experience, and I think that's the odd piece about it. If you were to talk to me a few days, maybe a month after I got married, and you're like, hey, Dee, did you have a voice? I'd be like, oh, I don't know. I was just so deeply suppressed, right?
Wow. Um, I love that story.
Thank
So
you.
I do because it's brave. It's really brave to do that and to go, okay. You could have ignored, like when you're feeling the backyard, you could have ignored it and thought, oh, I'm not gonna, it'll go away or whatever. But
Hmm.
you didn't. You chose you. You were there for you. And um, and sometimes that's the bravest and the kindest and the most loving thing we can do is say, hello. Hi, Sarah. I'm here for you. Hi, Deidre. I'm here for
Yeah.
you. So so then what did you do or how did you reinforce what you were already going to do to learn to trust what your body was telling you?
Yeah, so I was introduced to the very first shaman that I studied with. I would say probably 4 years or 3 years before that moment happened, in my kitchen, my wake up call, you could say. And I actually just thought I was going to a yoga class. A friend of mine, an older friend of mine, at the time. So I was like early 20s. She was probably like mid to late 40s. She's like, hey, Dee, like, let's go to this workshop. And because I was a full time yoga instructor, I own a yoga company. I assumed it was some sort of yoga workshop. I was like, oh, Susan's just inviting me to a yoga workshop. And so I get to this warehouse and I'm like, okay, I'm at a warehouse in North Vancouver, walk in, she's already there. And it's just this big warehouse and there's chairs in a circle. There's one woman at the kind of front of the circle sitting down. She has long white hair that touches the floor. She looks like she's never, cut her hair in her life and long skirt. And everyone's sitting down except for there's one chair open and it's directly in front of her in the circle. So I walk in and I'm probably wearing bright pink or some bubblegum fun color because that's the type of yoga teacher I was at the time, you know, upbeat, fun music, yoga and fitness together. And I sit down, I put my yoga mat beside my chair, and I'm kind of like, no one's talking really. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not like at a yoga. I guess this isn't a yoga workshop. I sit down, and within about a moment or two, she starts going around the circle asking each woman, what do you feel in your body? What do you feel in your body? And one woman after the other, Sarah, started crying or yelling or something huge, like a huge emotion. And I'm sitting there in my chair and I'm looking at the exit sign and I'm like, how do I get out of this place without anyone noticing? Which was actually impossible to do. So I was like, but I
Well,
was
you're in a big
so uncomfortable.
warehouse. How are you gonna? You're not gonna sneak out.
But I was so uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, like what's going on here? She finally gets to me. I'm the new girl in class, right? And I wish I wasn't. And she's like, how do you feel in your body? And I'm like, I feel good. And it was so quiet in the room. You could have heard a pin drop. I could just tell that I didn't belong in this room. People were like, "Who is this woman?" And I was so uncomfortable. So she's like, "How do you feel in your body?" I'm like, "I feel good." Try again. I feel my feet on the ground again. I feel my sit bones on the chair. I'm like, and I'm probably smiling because I'm so uncomfortable. I've never really felt a lot of deep emotions because it's never been safe in my life. So I've got this facade about me for at that point in my life where everything's great because I'm not allowed to feel anything else and I want to run out of there. Somehow, Sarah, I make it through the 2 or 3 hour session without dying, which, it was probably the most comfortable I've been in my entire life. I get out of that place as fast as I can without running. The fast scoot walk. And I was like, had my yoga thing and I'm like, I got to get out of here. I paid. I was like, I don't know what I'm paying for, but this woman is scary. Right. And as I'm walking out of this, warehouse, my soul says out loud, like my mouth says it, but like I didn't do it on purpose. It was like, when's the next circle? And I was surprised, just as surprised at like as everyone else. And I was like, why did I say that? And I started to come back week after week after week. And she was the very first shaman that I studied with. And I think I studied with her for a year, maybe two, maybe longer. But it got to a point where I learned the language of the soul. And first I was in denial. I was like, the body doesn't like the soul. This is nonsense. Like what? And then I would tune into my emotion in like, let's say I had knee pain and I would ask like, what's going on in my knee? And then all of a sudden the pain would go away. Like all these things were happening, but I was still in denial of it. I was like, this woman's a little crazy. She made people cry a lot. I usually felt worse every time I leave. So I didn't feel the way I wanted to feel. So eventually I was like, this woman's crazy. And I stopped going, but I worked with her for like a couple of years. So the first step to answer your question of doing the healing work was I think I was still kind of tapped into her work at the time, but maybe not as frequently. And I couldn't deny it anymore, which is why I was like, could it be that my soul's been talking to me through these symptoms? Because I don't know if I would just, have that epiphany on my own, that wisdom without that background. So I started to look at what was going on in my body and I started to honor myself and listen to like, this part of self-acceptance around this doesn't feel good. Like, what if there's a reason why I don't feel good? And what if that's okay? And what if that's a preference? And what if I can have something different than what I'm experiencing? So that was part of it. And then
Pause for 1 second.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, because I think this is a super important point, and I know it's familiar to you. So, I'm going to ask you to slow down so it can be a little more ingestible for
Yeah.
me and for other listeners. So, let's use your knee, like you talked about.
Yeah.
Say it was a little uncomfortable. Were you ignore? And you said, "What if that's okay?" Were you saying, "What if it's okay that my knee is uncomfortable," or "What if it's okay that that's the way it's always going to be"? What are you saying? Okay.
Right. Good question, Sarah. Thanks for clarifying that because I'm sure other people are like, okay, like what is
I'm
she
selfish.
talking?
I asked for me too.
No, I love it because I'm Miss Chatty over here. So the piece around acceptance for me when I was leaving that relationship was more about, and I'll get to the knee in a moment, was more of, I can't really change how I feel about this. It's not working. For me in my life, I was always so good at making things work as a woman and as someone who's very intuitive and in tune with other people, also hyper vigilant in a lot of ways, like very in tune with my environment, which a lot of us have from maybe a traumatic experience when we're younger. And so for me, I could always make things right for my safety. So a big part of we could say awakening or just getting in tune with myself and accepting myself is like, this just doesn't feel good. And if it doesn't feel good, this isn't working. And it's okay for it not to feel good because it's showing me it's not for me. I can't distort, change myself. And that's actually what got me into the personal development space is in my relationship. I always thought everything was my fault. I would internalize everyone else's problems and be like, oh, I'm guilty. I'm bad. I need to be better. So I dove into all of these personal development things. And at the end of it, it's like, no, this is actually telling me I need to change, but this is me. I can't change this. So that's the acceptance piece around myself and accepting that this isn't working. And then the knee part was more around when I was mentioning the symptom, when I was starting to learn the language of the soul, is tuning into a symptom in the body and asking that part of the body, like, what is this connected to? Oh, it's a relationship dynamic that I don't want to have that conversation. Okay, I need to have this conversation. And then I have the conversation and my knee pain goes away. So that's more of the language of the soul piece. And then the part that I mentioned before is more around the acceptance piece. So thank you for getting that clarity.
Well, and it's all listening though, either way, right? You're
Yeah.
listening, which we don't really listen. And I'm guilty as well. There's a lot of distractions, so you have to be intentional about listening to other people, but to you and to your body as well.
Yeah. And I think today more than ever, and I know more than ever is such an over, everyone's saying now more than ever, but now more than ever, everyone is saying something on the internet. Everyone's preaching something. And so, one thing that I do to protect my own self, my internal self, is to not tune into a bunch of noise externally and people's opinions, especially if I'm going through a life transition or I need to make a difficult decision. I do my very best not to outsource that because at the end of the day, no one else is really going to know what's best for me unless it's a mentor who's been where I've been, where I want to go, and they're helping me with something I'm totally unfamiliar with. But when it has to do with like what's for me, what's not for me, and those internal pieces, I'm super selective who I let into my mind because that can also distort my reality and confuse me. And I think today, and also as women, it's really challenging because there's so much stuff coming at us all of the time.
Well, and it's easy to slip into with all that stuff coming at you, easy to slip into victimhood and feel like, oh, it's too much, too much. It's not too much because we
Mhm.
can tune it out.
We can. We just have to have discipline and boundaries, right? And that's a thing. Like the boundary piece is really important. So for me, I have a lot of boundaries with my phone. I don't follow a ton. I do follow people on social media, but I'm not on there all the time. And I actually have a rule where I don't let people give me advice unless I've asked for it or I've hired them. And it's been this thing that I've had to dance with for the past, I'd say 3 or 4 years. But if someone's like, hey, you know what you should do? I'm like, I really appreciate your excitement. But I don't take advice from people I haven't hired or I haven't asked for advice from. So I'd really appreciate it if you kept that to yourself. And some people have taken it the wrong way and that's okay, but that's what I need to do to protect my peace in a lot of ways because everyone's going to have an opinion of what I should do. And because of my default of being a people pleaser and, you know, uh, giving away my own knowledge or what I should do, I really have to protect that bubble. So that's like a
I
specific
love it.
thing that I do, and it's really helpful for me.
I love it. And that's actually when you do that, even if someone kind of is a little bit affronted by it, it's also, you're not saying it in a mean or
Mm,
caustic way. You're
no,
just setting a clear boundary. That gives permission to that person to use it with someone else where they might be feeling overwhelmed with opinions they're not ready for, interested in, or haven't asked for.
100%. I love that.
So we all need little mentors to help us have the right
We
words.
do. We do. Yeah.
No matter how old you get, it's kind of like, how would you say this? Um,
Hmm.
no, it's so helpful to have that. Well, so what I wanted to ask you, you talked around being radically aligned. So what does that actually mean or show up day to day?
Yeah. And so it's so interesting because for a long time, I was very black and white. I was like, right or wrong, or you're aligned or you're not. And that was more of the type of coach I was because that's what I needed in my own life. So I'm just going to be upfront with that. I've shifted, I've softened a lot with that. So radical alignment, there's three, or we could say four main pillars of it. So the logo of radical alignment, or my company logo is a triangle and then a circle that intertwines with the triangle around it. And so the top of the triangle is truth. And truth to me represents always asking yourself, what is the truth? And seeking the truth, which also has to do with spirituality, right? Something beyond us, connected to something beyond us, and also has to do with us healing ourselves so that we can actually experience the truth of what is versus our projected distortion of what we think is true, which usually is a limitation, which usually has the belief system of, I'm not enough, I can't, that person doesn't like me, I can't, whatever the thing is, right? So the top pillar is truth because the foundation of everything, if it's not built on truth, you're not going to get to where you want to go. So when I look at radically aligned, I think of it's essentially leadership embodied or embodied leadership in your life. So what's the truth? Do I need to heal something? Am I not feeling connected to, spirituality? What's going on around me? The second pillar is living and leading from the heart. Okay, so a lot of people say, "Oh, speak your truth, speak your truth, speak your truth." And I think that's amazing. And are you wrapping it in love or are you just being an a-hole? You know what I mean?
You
And I
know,
think
you've said that that is the best explanation and differentiation. People go, I have to be authentic. And I'm thinking, you're looking for a way to chew somebody out and say, I'm just being authentic. And you're just,
it's a easy way out of not being responsible for how you act. And
yes.
I think it's really immature. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really immature. So I love that you brought that up.
I love that.
Yeah. So the second pillar is all around living and leading from the heart. So that can be in relationships. For me, I'm very much a truth teller. I'm very direct, but it's with love. And it's also, is this coming from love or is it coming from somewhere else? And really connecting to the heart. So that has to do with intimate relationships, friendships, all of that, right? Relationship to ourself. And then the third pillar is purpose. And so when we're on purpose, we create things beyond anything that we could have ever imagined. Our relationships flourish. When we're on purpose in our life, things become easy. And when we're on purpose, we're fulfilled. So if we have truth, if we always go back to what is the truth, okay, what's distorting it? What do I maybe need to heal? Am I connected to God, source, whatever you believe in, right? Or am I thinking I'm alone in this? Um, am I connected to my heart? How can I come back to love and, communicate and be in proper relationship, right relationship with myself and others, which to me feels like what spirituality is. And then the third piece is purpose, because when we're on purpose, life makes sense and everyone wins and we're all contributing. And then there's a circle around those three pillars, which is the wisdom that we gain on the journey of growing. So for me, I'm mid 30s. I've lived a lot of lives for my age and I'm always learning. Like I said, radical alignment to me when I started my company years ago was very like black and white. And this is the way things are. I'm like, well, like it is the way things are, but nature takes time. People take time. No one's perfect and it's a process. And so that's what a radical alignment means. And it's really about looking at your whole life through that. Anything that you're struggling with or that's not quite right. How can I go to the truth? How can I be connected to something more? Why is this really happening? What do I maybe need to heal or look at to find the truth? Can I connect it to love? Am I in right relationship with myself and others? How can I get back in a right relationship? And am I on purpose or am I just flailing around and not really being intentional? And then what am I learning on the journey so that I can learn and grow from those experiences?
Okay, question for you.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'll hear people say, I don't know what, you ask, what are you doing now or something? I'm waiting to find out what my purpose is.
Right.
I'm thinking, well, how will you find it if you're not out dabbling in the world? You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if I called you and said I needed help and I don't know what my purpose is, how
Mhm.
could you help me? Or what would you do?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different maps on how to discover your purpose. And I think it's interesting. I think it's, basic. It's helpful for getting people to think depending on who's coming to me. But really, Your purpose isn't what you do, it's who you are. And are you actually being who you really are? Or are you being a distorted version of you? So, if someone were to come to me and say, "Hey, I don't know what my purpose is, I'm lost," I would really do some of the deeper work with them of awakening them to who they really are so that their purpose, and I put in quotation marks because I'd love to unpack this a little bit. It's so obvious when we're authentic and we see things clearly, but it seems so far away and we're so disconnected when we're just disconnected from ourselves. So reconnect to ourselves, then it's obvious. And then it's like, well, what vehicle do you want to play in your purpose? Because I was in my purpose as a yoga teacher, but that vehicle, the vehicle of being a yoga teacher, expired. And then I stepped into leadership coaching and women's work and now business coaching. And you know what I mean? It evolves. It's like, well, what's most fun for me to fulfill my purpose? And our purpose is also it's what people experience. It's not what we do. So that's how I would answer that. What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? I think I just love how you package up explanations. Um, I think that's pretty powerful. I don't think knowing your purpose is static
No.
because there's nothing to reflect back to you. So I could say my purpose is to be a podcast host. Well, that's not really it. My intended purpose 8 years ago when I started was to get out there for my business. My purpose today is to meet interesting people who are making a difference in the world. And
Mhm.
there we are. But
Mhm.
and my thoughts about all of that are different too, from the, oh, you got to grind it out and stuff to like, my goal is having great people, period.
Yeah.
Um, but I also realize ever since I was a kid, I was the kid in our family who would go up to strangers and talk to them.
Oh, I
Like,
love that.
we'd be in a restaurant, like those family restaurants, where you go in your town. We lived in a small town. We didn't go out much. So when we went out, I took advantage of it.
Nice.
But, my parents, the generation, let's have a cocktail in the bar before we sit down. And so the kids can't be in the bar. So you're in the other area and I like talking to people. And
Yeah.
I remember someone saying, man, she talks a lot. And then I remember cutting it back, just going, okay, that felt I must have been like 4 or 5. And I
Mhm.
still kind of remembered it. But then when I started doing this, I'm thinking, I like talking to people. I don't
Yeah.
care. Maybe it never goes anywhere, but I think about how many people have a story to tell, but
Mhm.
because they're not famous, quote unquote famous,
Mhm.
no one listens to them. And yet when you listen to people every day, someone says something, you go, man, that's such a great piece of information or experience to share. So I just
Mhm.
had this need to do that. I never would have known that 8 years ago, you know?
I love that, and it's so cool because, you were getting that feedback that this is something that you naturally like to do, and, you also got the feedback that, "Oh, she talks too much maybe," and, I think a lot of the time, our greatest gifts are wrapped in our wounds and our trauma, and if we have the courage to heal them and own them, then we can bring those diamonds to other people, but most people who may not have the courage to do the deeper work may feel like I don't know what my purpose is. And it's once you kind of do that deeper work on self, it's like, oh, I'm a podcast host and Sarah's amazing. She's such a great podcast host and she brings the best people on and has the best conversations. Like, of course, this is something that you are meant to do. So I love that.
Well, for now, I mean, who knows? Who knows what I'll
Yeah.
be doing in 2 years, 6 months?
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but it'll have something to do with communicating with people,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the underlying. So I think like how things manifest, like your yoga teaching experience, where you
Hmm.
described yourself as bubblegum, kind of. But you know what? You showed up and did that,
Yeah.
and then it evolved into the next layer of you. So that's why I was really curious about purpose, because I think purpose is something you have to listen for and feel.
And
And
yeah. Oh, go ahead. No,
I
go
was
you
just
go
gonna
ahead.
say, I've been like learning for decades, and you still learn new stuff about
Mhm.
yourself, not just about the world, but about yourself. When you were talking about, okay, is this coming from my heart? I have really intense conversations with myself while I'm doing the dishes. It's like, Sarah, how are you gonna respond to that? Are you being a grumpy kid like when you were a teenager and you
Yeah.
like I'm going, just how do you really feel? Well, I really kind
Mhm.
of feel feel happy, well, then why are you taking that old stuff with you? But, these are not out loud conversations, but they're awareness conversations.
Oh, that's so powerful to have that awareness. I also wanted to say it's interesting, like the purpose piece, because I feel like my expression of my purpose, for me, when I think of the deepest essence of who I am, I love cheerleading people. I've always been a cheerleader. Like I was my brother's cheerleader for his soccer team when he was in tournaments. I was like, the pom pom girl. This is when I was really little. I wasn't like a college cheerleader or anything. It was probably not my style or not my thing. But I always loved encouraging people, and I've always been a very sensitive person. And when I was younger and in my adulthood, oh, you're too sensitive, you're too sensitive. And I always genuinely wanted to encourage people. And a lot of people would think that's like maybe fake or inauthentic, but genuinely, I'm happy for people. And of course, I'm in the coaching space. I'm intuitive. I help people with this. But this last year, the last couple of years, Sarah, I got into music. And I never thought I would sing. I never thought I would write music, any of that. And that's kind of this new edge that I've been playing. And it's not what I do for a living for money or anything like that. But it's like this expression of me that's very raw and real. And it's like, oh, I didn't see this coming. So I feel like on the journey, we kind of think that we know. And then we're like, oh, I didn't know this was there. So it's cool,
It
but
is.
it's also let yourself be surprised. Like whoever's listening or watching right now, allow yourself to be surprised with what comes up and be okay not knowing if you're going to be good at it because you won't know unless you do it.
Right, and you know what? You meet new friends along the way. So maybe the
Yeah.
reason you do something isn't because you're gonna be great at it, but you run into somebody or a different experience. So I love that you said that, have fun and
Yeah.
enjoy it. Yeah. I think I know for me, a lot of you were talking about being black and white earlier in your career. It's like everything had to have a purpose. Like if you're doing this, there has to be an output and a reason.
Right.
And by the way, better yet, if it's a billable hour. And I'm so today I'm going, oh, the purpose is, do I feel fulfilled after I've done that for a client or with a client? Right.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not going to rush. And if it takes
Mhm.
longer, it takes longer. If it takes them longer, it takes longer. It just is
Mhm.
what it is because that stress on other people, I don't feel is necessary. I don't feel it's necessary to make people feel stressed or bad about maybe not being as far as they want to be at a point in time. Um,
Mhm.
but, we were talking pre-chat, pre-record when we talked about breath work and how watching people. Yes, you were talking about the
Mhm.
breathing patterns and stuff. Will
Yeah.
you say a little bit about that and explain that? Because it would really piqued my interest.
Yeah, I love that. So we were just speaking about everyone has different patterns that essentially when you plan your life around, life gets better, I find, and more fun, and you understand yourself a lot better. And I know for me, a lot of people love to talk about personality types and the gene keys and all these other different processes and tools that we can look at. This is something different. This is something I love to observe with people's breath. Through looking at someone, typically in person or through a process, I can tell what's guiding them. And through that, I can see, oh, they're an expander. So I'm just going to give the three examples and talk about how they work. And then anyone who's listening, you might intuitively know which one is driving the show. So for me, I was telling Sarah before we pressed record that I can plan something, I can organize something, I can do all the right things. But if I don't have that energy and excitement up front, it's not going to work. No matter how much time or energy I put into it, if I don't feel that excitement energy right away with a project or a thing, it's going to go flat. So I am an energetic. Okay. So that's my primary one. The second one that I want to talk about is the expander. The expander is the person who needs to be in a location and really feel the environment and be in that place. And then everything happens from there. So a lot of people will be like, I need to be in my office. I need to be in a space. And then when I'm in my office or my space or the right location, that's when everything just happens for me. That's when everything kind of clicks into place. And then the next one is the person who just takes lots of action. You just go, 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 go. You do all the things. And then suddenly everything comes together and it's a success. So for me, when I look at someone in their breathing pattern and we do some exercises, I can see which one is their dominant one, their secondary one, and their third one. So for me, I am an excitement. So, excitement is the energy. I am the action taker, which is the second one, the movement. And then the third one is the space, the results. Okay. It's like it's manifested. So for me, if I go into a location and I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to have everything click into place. But if I have an idea about something or an idea comes to me and I have a lot of energy, that energy is going to give me a ton of energy and motivation to take a bunch of actions that feel effortless. And then naturally, it's going to turn into a manifestation of something that is the result. But if I were to do that backwards, I'm going to be in a location, I'm going to do a bunch of work. Am I going to feel energized later or get a result? No. People have different placement patterns, and I can usually tell by looking at someone's breath what theirs are, and then through some questions. And when we design our business and life through that, things become easier. So for me, if I don't get the intuitive like excitement around a project, a person, an opportunity, whatever that is, it's a no for me because I know I'm going to be wasting my energy and time on something that's not going to work. Whereas last year, I ran a women's summit and I planned it in 20 days in the summertime, marketed it, had like 15 speakers. We had about 50 or 60 women in the room, which is crazy, just like the timeline and everything, because I had a very clear vision and energy behind it. And I'm like, it has to be done in June. It has to be done in June. It was just like this feeling. And because of that energy, I got crazy amounts of stuff done. It was a huge success. And then we did a festival in the winter. And it's like, it's about the energy, which is the excitement, the movement, and then the creation. But people are different. So that's a little bit about what we were talking about earlier. And when you know what your primary one is, you can know whether or not something is for you or how to design your business so that you are in right alignment and things work for you consistently.
So on a team level, you're going to have a mix of those folks.
Yeah.
So do you work with groups to help them figure, like if they're getting stuck in places, like they have a leader who's needs the environment, perhaps a place, and the other people are going, no, we're ready to go, 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 go. Um, could you help people figure that out?
Yeah. So if you have a leader who it's tricky because when you're working on a team, the leader typically has the plan and then the team are the executors. So that's where we would look at, well, who moves in what way? And that's where you can see who should have what role. And I think when you understand people's role and energetics and all of that, then everyone can work together. But if someone were to come to me, like, let's say, that you were a leader on a team and I was, working for you and you were like, D, are you excited about it? And I wasn't, I'd be like, I'd be lying. Right. So there's a lot of fake emotions and facades in business. So it's really just about knowing people's strengths and helping people step into that. But for me, I can't pretend I have energy around something unless I do. So it's really about, but as far as someone who likes to take a lot of action first, it's like, oh, they're going to go and do a bunch of stuff. And that's the way that they start. And then they're going to get energy and then they're going to get the result. Whereas the planner, is like, oh, I need to be at the retreat center or the place and I need to feel it out first. That person's great. The energizer, I would say, would hopefully need to be the leader or would need to get excited about it. Or you'd want to ask them, well, what would make you excited about this? What are some ideas that could really contribute, that would align? And through that conversation, that person could get energized. So could it work with a team and the dynamics? Absolutely. Through kind of probably a retreat or a half day experience to really see who's in what role and how they would work best.
Well, it also, in that situation, might be some ahas where people are thinking, okay, I know I'm the paper leader, but I'm not the one who's going to inspire and get the energy going. So I need someone to kick it off and I can come in
Mhm.
and do whatever. I think that part, but doing that, knowing that about ourselves first, which goes back to your soul work, the whole
Mhm.
person, who are you? Is it true? All of that. Then you're not protecting yourself, you're just saying, "I'm not the person who's gonna get you all hyped up about this. I'm a great
Yeah.
person at this point, and I will do my part and more." So I that's what caused me to ask that question, I was just curious.
Yeah,
And
that's a great question.
so, the one thing we really haven't talked about is your speaking,
Okay.
and as we're kind of getting wrapping this up, I'd like for you to share about that. I'm looking for the question I had for you on that in particular, but I'm not going to find it, so I'm just going to recall it. Um, so your voice and speaking and coming from your who you know yourself to be, how does that help us going forward? Like, what changes do you help people make with that?
Yeah. So essentially, what really excites me is storytelling. And I've shared some stories in our conversation. I mean, if you and I were hanging out, Sarah, longer, I'm sure we go back and share a ton of stories. So one of the things that is so important for anyone who's wanting to build connection, who's wanting to create trust, and also come across authentic and really, I could say influential because people remember stories. They don't really remember random things that you teach them. What I love to do is I love to work with entrepreneurs and leaders to really master different stories and storytelling in what they do, because that's the most effective way to communicate what you're about and who you are. And what it does is it helps you become a magnet for everyone that's for you. And it also helps you repel everyone that's not for you, which is a gift, right? Because imagine having a bunch of clients and people that just were like, you know what, Sarah, this really just doesn't feel good. Like, you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So storytelling on stage and in brands, it's a skill that most people aren't learning because they don't know how effective it is. But when you learn how to do it properly, it is actually the thing that blows up people's brands. And people today, more than ever before, they want to be a part of something. They want to stand for something. They want to know who you really are. And the truth is, most coaches and entrepreneurs, when they're on stage or a podcast or talking about their brand, they're like, let's say I'm a health coach. I hear this all the time. So I had an extra 20 pounds around my stomach, or I couldn't fit into my jeans, and I was depressed and I had no energy. And then one day I was like, can't do this anymore. And then now I'm a health coach and I help you lose that extra 10 pounds. Like that's what most people say. But if that person were to really learn storytelling and bring people into the experience, people would trust them. Like, I was looking at myself one day in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself. And it wasn't just externally, I wasn't the happy person that I had always been. And tears started to go down my face as I realized I wasn't showing up for my kids. And my husband and I, we weren't getting along and we weren't intimate, and I was so insecure, and I realized that this extra weight really was a way of me protecting myself from letting people get close to me from something that happened when I was younger. And I remember looking in myself in the mirror one morning after having a horrible fight with my husband. I mean, like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not the woman that I know I'm born to be. I can't be like this with my children. I'm not showing up for them. I don't have energy for them. And like, I don't want my relationship to end. I'm making this up on the spot, by the way. This isn't a practice story, but I'm giving you example. And like you
Really good though. I'm
bring
going, yeah, I know, I can see that. No, but what it does is those are all relatable situations.
yeah.
Totally
And
relatable.
And the person who's listening, they don't need to be exactly where you are. But what it does is it brings people into your world and it shows them your character. And we are in a huge trust recession right now. Huge trust recession where people don't trust. I mean, depending on where you're at, if you're single or you're in a relationship, like there's a trust recession in intimate relationships because you can access people on the flip of your phone. There's a lot of ways to hide things and not show up for people and be in integrity. There's a trust recession in business because everyone's a coach, everyone's selling something.
Everyone's
And
an
the
expert.
Exactly. And there's a lot of noise. And what makes you stand out and opens up doors that nothing else can, it's your story. And one of my clients I was just talking to the other day, he's like, D, from being on a stage for just 5 minutes, he was randomly on a stage. He didn't even know he was going to be called on stage. He had a huge uptick in his sales that day, like huge sales. I'm not going to say sales numbers, but huge sales just from him going up and telling a story. He got a magazine spread for free. He didn't pay for it. He got on a podcast that had 44,000 listeners per episode, like right away. And this opportunity was 10 months ago with him being brought on stage and sharing his story. We did other work in his business too. And now he's doing a tour in the health and wellness space on the top podcasts in the world that have hundreds of thousands, even millions of listeners because of his story, not because he paid some big PR company $50,000. And a lot of those opportunities might not have happened if he paid a PR company. So storytelling is the thing that every single leader in companies needs to get good at and also learn how to bring that to light because it is the super connector and it is the thing that makes people remember you, but also it's hard to tell your story because you got to really lead and be seen and that's what I love helping people do in business. It's so fun.
Okay, that is the perfect pinnacle for this podcast episode. So before we go out, we will have all the connections for Deidre in the show notes. So don't even worry about that. We will. But I wanted to ask you if there was something that you want to offer listeners, if you've got something on your website, or what your last parting words are, and what your last parting words are for our listeners today.
Well, first of all, Sarah, I just want to say this conversation has been so fun. You're such a lovely host. I'm so happy that you didn't listen to whoever said you talk too much because you don't. So just want to say that first. For me, I do have a free offer for anyone that's listening. If you are a coach or an entrepreneur and you're like, hey, I want to speak on stages, I want to speak on podcasts, I want to get more visible, I want to learn this stuff, I have a free training that I can send to you, Sarah, to add into the show notes, where I take you through I think it's the 7 steps or the 6 steps to generate an additional 6 figures or more from speaking. And there's also a free video training there as well. And then, of course, if you're like, hey, I want to do deeper work and really have a mentor in this, I'd love to chat with you about it. And I would just say that if there is something challenging that you've been through or that you're going through right now, the most complete way that I've ever experienced, or anyone that I've ever worked with has experienced, of healing has really had to do with telling their story and getting visible. And that's been a really powerful journey for me. So, Sarah, thank you so much for having me tell my story on your show and creating this really powerful platform for all of us.
Well, you're more than welcome. And I know our podcast listeners are going to get, or already got, so much out of this. I do have a request of listeners. Before you go away from whatever device you're listening on, just forward this to a friend, because someone, and probably many someones that need to hear Deidre's message. She's fun, she's smart, she's uplifting, and who knows, because her story had many inflection points in it, someone's going to relate to something that you may not even know is touching their heart right now. And so just pass it along, so her message can get out further and we can have more positive stories out.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/no labels, no limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.